don't be scared of reaching out. Oh, gosh, they must have left because they were unhappy, they were dissatisfied, they were upset with something that we did. How do I make that a little bit better? So don't be scared. The reason why most businesses don't do reactivation is, number one, they had never thought of it. Number two, they've thought of it, but they got scared about what they might find out.
Maui Mastermind presents the Business Coach Podcast, answering your questions and providing real actionable insights for building a better, stronger, more profitable business without sacrificing your time, life, or freedom anymore.
Welcome to another episode of The Business Coach. I'm your host, David Finkel, and in this episode, I want to go into depth about a little-known, very poorly used source of free customers. Wait a second, David. There are free customers out there, customers that I can have without any marketing costs. I might have some sales costs, but no marketing cost. These leads that are there for just the taking, they're right there on the tree, and I can just pick them off. They're low-hanging fruit. And the answer is a resounding yes. Now, what is the source? It's your past inactive customers. Today, I want to talk about reactivation. It's a little bit of an intimidating thought for many people. Many people think, oh, gosh, they must have left because they were unhappy, they were dissatisfied, they were upset with something that we did. The truth of the matter is, and check this with your own experiences, how many times have you worked with a business that you've used them either in your personal life or in your business life, and you stopped buying from them, not because they did something wrong, and maybe not even because you no longer have the need, but somehow that buying pattern got interrupted, and then inertia took over, and you've been meaning to get back into doing it, whether it means working with that personal trainer, you've been meaning to go back and call her up to get personal training sessions going on, whether that be in your company, you've been meaning to really deal with that IT challenge that you've had, but you just got interrupted with that part. Maybe for you, it was something with a professional service firm that you had, or I don't know what it is. The biggest reason why we lose customers is not what we fear most. I'm assuming that you do a reasonably good job at delivering on the promises you make to new customers. I'm assuming that that's the case, right? We tend to have, when I look at the type of people who listen to the Business Coach or who come into the sphere in the Maui community of business owners, they tend to be people who are really good at the core business that they do with their existing business. They deliver on their promises. They're fairly high integrity or more. So I'm assuming that that's the case. With that said, most people leave you not for anything that is to do with you, but things that are going on for them. And that's beautiful. That's a good thing, because what that means is that if we go back to our past customers who we've already spent all the marketing cost and they've already had a good interaction with us and purchased from us before, what a great opportunity. Now, I'm going to give an example for that we did with a client of ours that ran a dental practice. This client, she had 2 dental clinics, and what would happen is that people would come in for a variety, do their semi-annual, twice a year, supposed to come in to do your hygiene things, and then when they would do that, they would find that they needed, fillings to be done and different types of filling fixtures to be done for their mouth, things like crowns and other things that need to be done. Plus, when they did that, they got the kids for the braces and the orthodonture, et cetera, et cetera. So that having them come in for those semi-annual cleanings, the hygiene appointments, was really important for this business. And they had thousands of people who came to them that used to go to them that just dropped off. Some moved, some have found other dentists, but the majority of them just stopped going to any dentist. Why? Because, and I know this is going to shock you, there are some people in the world that don't love going to a dentist. So as I was working with this client, I coached her and I said, well, hang on, let's do something really simple. Some weeks you are completely full and you have no space, but there are other weeks that you have where you have openings or availability in your schedule. And think about what an opening in your schedule looks like. If your hygienist can handle 40 people over a day, 30 people over a day, let's say it's 30, and you have a day where she's only got 15 and you've got 3 hygienists and they're each doing 15, that means you're losing out on 45 patients you could have seen that day. Not just the cost of the cleaning, but but you're losing out on all the ancillary ongoing revenue from that part. That's a big deal. What do you spend to get a new customer? We went through that part. They advertised in places like local magazines. They did sponsorships for local sports things that were going on, especially in the junior high school and the high school levels. They did other types of direct mail. They had lots of marketing that they were doing for patients. But when we looked at reactivation, they weren't doing anything for that. They weren't. So I said, let's do a couple of things here. Number one, let's pull together a list of, and the list was well over 1,000, patients that used to come to you regularly but haven't come to you, would say, in over a year from that part. They pulled the list together. I said, the next time that you're looking ahead, let's say it's a Wednesday, and you can see next week you have some scheduling gaps, or the 2 weeks out you have some scheduling gaps. Get your front office staff to take a little bit of that empty time and make the following call. Here's the script we're going to use. Mrs. Jones, hi, this is David with Dr. Lee's office, or David with Dr. Kim's dental practice. How are you? Dr. Kim asked me to reach out to you. She was concerned that you hadn't come in for your regular semi-annual health exam and cleaning. It's been a bit of time right now, and her concern was there's been some studies that have come out, one of which was published in the New England Journal of Medicine, that talked about how low-grade oral infections are actually one of the contributing factors for heart disease, which is the single biggest or the second biggest killer in the United States. She really felt it was important to get you back in here. Can you grab your calendar, Mrs. Jones? What's better for you? Would it be better for you next week or the week after that to schedule? That was a simple script. And by the way, I might be off on the article, but the low-grade oral infection is actually accurate. And so we gave her that script. Her staff started doing that. They increased revenue by reactivating between 12 and 30%. One clinic was 12%, one clinic was 30% more revenue. Now, in a professional services firm, a medical business, to increase by 12 and 30% with a simple tactic like that, it's much more profitable because you have no marketing cost for that other than the time for someone making the dials. And what you're doing is you're using empty capacity by filling in the gaps that way. That was this example of an activation system that one of our clients used. So how do we go about doing this? Let's go through and kind of talk through what are the steps here. First of all, step one is to create a schedule of reactivation campaign. What is it you're going to do? What's the schedule? For you, the reactivation, it might not be to do this with clients on an ongoing basis. You might find that you're going to time this to do it twice per year, a formal reactivation. You might find that you're going to do this in spring for a summer blowout. You might find that you're going to do it in fall for a start back to the school year. You might find that you're going to do it right in June for a summer thing. You can decide how frequently you're going to do. If you have an ongoing forever service, my suggestion for you is don't make it where you're doing it just in discrete, once per year, twice per year, but instead use it to fill in the capacity gaps. When you have extra capacity and you can see that coming down the road, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks beforehand, start filling that extra capacity by making these calls or by sending out the emails. Now, most people, when it comes to reactivation, they think about it as, oh, I'll send an email. Well, is that working for you? What we've noticed with our coaching clients, and one of the benefits we get is because we're working with hundreds of different companies at any given moment in time, we get to see what's actually working in the marketplace. And what we've noticed or observed is, yes, email works, but its efficacy has gone way downhill as people tune that out. And we've seen things like text increase until now it's starting to be tuned out slightly because of, how many junk texts do you get that you just start getting annoyed by or hit to junk? But what we've found works really well in many of the industries that we're dealing with in coaching, direct mail and an outbound phone call. Wait a second, David, that's old school stuff. A physical thing that you mail, paying postage through the U.S. Postal Service? Yes, we find that that's working really well for many businesses, and it's working really well when followed up with a closely timed phone call, an outbound phone call. We find the two in tandem have been working really well. So consider that for you. So the easiest form of reactivation campaign is to pull the list of past customers, have that list ready to go, whether that list is 100 or 1,000 or 10,000. Let's say it's 750. Great, you've got a list of 750. Spend some money in thinking through how we're going to create the right offer to them that we're going to send out by mail, direct mail, postcard, or letter, and following up with a phone call. Doing that, just think about that. You might spend this much money, like, $1,000 to acquire a new lead for a new this part. Isn't it worth $200 of time and money on the direct mail to reactivate an old customer? And generally, which is easier to convert? A brand new cold lead prospect, or someone who used to buy from you but just stopped for one reason or another? My experience working across many different companies and industries, it's easier. It's qualitatively and quantitative easier to reactivate an old customer than to take a cold customer and do that on a larger scale. So for all those reasons, it makes good sense for that. So the first step, figure out what's the reactivation schedule you're going to use. Secondly, figure out where you're going to get your reactivation list and systematize it out. We call that system your UBS, your ultimate business system, your system for how you go into your database to pull off your list of past dental customers, your system for how you go into your database and pull your list of past travel customers. Third, you're going to create a clear offer, a reactivation offer for those people. You're going to make sure it's compelling. Part of that offer should talk about why you're reaching out to them. You should have something to grab their attention. You should make your offer and you should give them clear next steps to respond. Let's go back in our example with the dental practice. Mrs. Jones, hi, this is David from Dr. Kim's office. How are you? Dr. Kim asked me to call you because she was concerned about X. Think about that. If you had someone calling from a doctor or a dental office that you went to and they said, hey, the doctor asked me to call you and she was concerned about X, wouldn't you pay a little bit of attention? Give me at least 30 seconds of attention? Sure. So now I follow that up with, you might not be aware of this, or you're probably aware of this, but there's been recent studies that have come out talking about how low-grade oral infections are one of the key contributing factors for health disease, which is one of the biggest killers, one of the top 3 killers and causes of death in the U.S. Dr. Kim was concerned that it's been over 12 months since you've come in. She's asked me to reach out and schedule with you. What looks better for you, next week or the week after, for me to schedule the alternate choice close? And then I'm going to pin it down to an appointment. They found when they did that for every phone call that they talked with somebody, 50% of the people at least would actually schedule their next appointment. 50%. They didn't have to make hundreds of phone calls to fill their schedule. They might only have to make 30, 50 calls to fill up the gaps they had in the next 2 weeks. It was a great strategy for them. And not only was it bringing people back in for that first, but that first cleaning led to now the next and the next and the next. So coming back to this for you, the first step was, again, what is the schedule that you're going to hit these reactivations? Is it going to be once per quarter, twice per year, or is it going to be on an ongoing basis as you have gaps that you can see in your scheduling for your capacity? UBS number 2, you're going to UBS or create the system for how you go about pulling your reactivation list. Number 3, what's the offer? Number 4, you're going to create a simple funnel around this offer so you can track what's happening, right? So we're making how many phone calls and how many people do we reach? And of the people we reach, how many of them say yes to the offer? Of the people that say yes to the offer, how many come through and actually complete their purchase? Those 4 steps I can actually track. We had 100 come in. We had 50% of them say yes. We had of that 50% of them that said yes, 94% of them went through and completed their transaction, right? We can monitor that part so that we can then start our campaign with good tracking, and then we can figure out over time, how can we make that campaign even better? How can we refine that campaign? By looking at what the conversion points are and thinking, how do I make that a little bit better? Can I change up my scripting? Can I support the phone call with a better direct mailer? Should I have some email that goes with that part? Simple ways for doing that. The bottom line from today I want you to get from this is as follows. You've already spent all the marketing dollars to get these past customers into your world. You've already spent it, whether that was $200, $2,000, or $20,000 to generate the lead. These are people who already trusted you enough to buy from you at least once. Don't be scared of reaching out. But David, what if they tell me that they had a bad experience? Well, would you rather them have had a bad experience and never tell you, so you can never learn from it, never fix it, and they're now disgruntled in the marketplace and community? Or would you rather at least hear about it so that you can, at the very minimum, learn from it to improve, and at best, perhaps do something to salvage the relationship? You know, I can think about years ago, I was talking with a past client of ours who we had reached out to get them started again. We had done that through email with an outbound phone call, and somehow I was on the phone with them. This is probably close to a decade ago, but it's still in my head. And this client had had an upset, and she shared her upset about something that she perceived that we had not done for her that we had promised. And I was totally unaware of it. So I said, thank you. I am really appreciative of you letting me know where we failed you. I am very sorry, and I apologize that we failed you. I don't know if you're ever going to do business with us again, and I'm not going to offer this because of that, but I want to make things right with you. I would love to get you this access to one of our home study courses as our way of saying sorry for what happened. Or if you want, we have a workshop coming up in not that far away, about a 2-hour drive from where you're at. I would love for you to be my guest at that workshop, no cost to you. And this is just my way of saying I'm sorry and I want to make the situation better. No strings attached with that. Which of those would you like? And she chose the workshop. At the workshop, she had a great experience. At the workshop, we talked further. I learned something to improve our business, and lo and behold, just the fact that we had that interaction, we reached out, we cared, we listened, we did something for her, she became a client again. So don't be scared. The reason why most businesses don't do reactivation is, number one, they have never thought of it. Number two, they've thought of it, but they got scared about what they might find out. Let those go. Remember, reactivation, what it really means is you've got prospects that you've already paid for. They're free for you now at this point. And they've already had a past buying relationship with you. Get to work leveraging that relationship by going back to the people who used to do business with you, but for whatever reason have stopped. By the way, if they say no to you, ask them for a referral. Why not? You'd be surprised. You can take a no and turn it into, who else do you know that has a need for this particular product or service? I wish you the very best. Thank you for listening to this episode of The Business Coach.